But then the question was, what about the Crusades? So let me answer that directly.
Answer it.
In this video, a Muslim attempts to guilt-trip a Christian preacher by referencing the Crusades, a historical event often used to cast a shadow over the legacy of Christianity. For centuries, the Crusades have been framed as a means to undermine the rich history of the faith, portraying Christians as suddenly turning violent and brutal. This narrative suggests that, without case, Christians abandoned their principles and engaged in cruel, inhumane acts. However, this perspective oversimplifies the complexities of the era, ignoring the broader context of conflict and survival that drove the Christian response. Watch how this preacher is bold enough to refuse the widespread false narrative. He first starts off by making some things clear to the audience.
Question was,
What about the Crusades?
and if you interrupt the answer, you'll find that you don't get to ask another question.
Now that things are clear to the audience, let's get to the question now.
Let him ask a question you've already asked.
So are you saying that with Christianity comes peace? Yeah?
So, ladies and gentlemen,
What about the Crusades?
Now, for those who haven't gotten the question clearly, the Muslim guy is asking this. If at all Christianity says that it is always comes in peace, what about the Crusades? Now that we are all on the same page, let us listen to what the preacher has to say about this.
the question was, am I saying that with Christianity comes peace? No, I'm not. I'm saying with Christ comes peace. But then the question was, what about the Crusades? So let me answer that.
Before we even hear what answer the preacher has for us, this is what he does. First, he separates the actions of historical Christianity from the teachings of Christ. He's making a clear distinction between institutional history and spiritual teachings. This sets up the conversation to historical events like the Crusades, which involved a mixture of political, military, and religious motivations, none of which directly represent the message of peace that Christ taught. Anyway, let's get back and hear what answer the preacher has to this question.
The Crusades were launched after 7 centuries of constant Islamic aggression. Before the very first crusade was launched in 1095, Muslims had invaded the following Christian lands.
And which are these lands? Here is the list.
Say last.
They had invaded Christian Syria, Christian Jordan, Christian Palestine, Christian Egypt, Christian Algeria, Christian Libya, Christian Morocco, Christian Portugal, Christian Spain, Christian France, Christian Sicily, Christian Turkey, Christian Armenia, Christian Italy, all before the First Crusade.
That's such a long list of lands, right? Well, the preacher refers to a long period of Muslim expansion before the Crusades, emphasizing that these wars weren't the beginning of Christian-Muslim conflict. Historically, the Crusades were a reaction to the growing threat of Islamic empires to Christian territories in Europe and the Middle East. By 1095, Muslim forces controlled a vast area, including Jerusalem, sparking calls from Christian leaders like Pope Urban II to reclaim these lands. Speaking of Pope Urban II, the First Crusade was launched by him. Pope Urban's impassioned speech urged soldiers to take up arms, proclaiming that God was on their side. Let this be your war cry in combats, for this word is given to you by God. When an armed attack is made upon the enemy, let all soldiers of God cry, "It is the will of God! It is the will of God!" He promised divine favor and forgiveness for those who participated in the holy mission, even offering absolution of all their sins. The First Crusade succeeded in capturing Jerusalem after brutal combat. However, the Christian forces committed widespread atrocities, slaughtering the city's residents, both Muslim and Jewish, without mercy. These acts, while carried out in the name of religion, violated principles of what we now consider just war ethics. The devastation and bloodshed of the Crusades left scars that still echo in modern Islamic politics, fueling deep-seated grievances that linger to this day. This context helps explain the defensive motivation behind the Crusades. through the wars themselves were fueled also by political ambitions. But then, this is just the beginning. The preacher goes on and makes a very strong allegation. Just listen to him speak.
The Crusades are a legitimate response to Islamic aggression and Islamic violence.
Whoa, that's very bold of him, right? The preacher is justifying the Crusades as a necessary response to centuries of Islamic expansion and conflict. Now, it is worth noting that historically, Islamic expansion during the early Middle Ages did indeed involve the conquest of significant Christian territories. This was not merely a religious conflict, but a battle for dominance, resources, and territory, setting the stage for a Christian response in the form of the Crusades. Modern society often views the concept of a holy war as a paradox. The idea of slaughtering thousands and wreaking massive destruction seems the antithesis of anything sacred or divine. Yet, historically, religion and warfare have frequently intertwined. Armies have long marched into battle believing they carried the favor of their gods, performing rituals and offering sacrifices to secure divine. In many ancient cultures, including those in the Bible, the defeated were sometimes forced to adopt the gods of their conquerors. However, simply invoking God's name doesn't qualify a conflict as a holy war. For a war to be truly holy, religion itself must be the primary driving force, rather than a justification or a symbolic campaign. Religion must be at the heart of the mission, shaping the goals and motivations of the warriors involved. What do you think about this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. To spice it up even more, the preacher goes on and rejects criticism of the Crusades from those who overlook the spread of Islamic empires through conquest.
I don't need to hear any lectures about the Crusades from people who support Islamic colonialism, Islamic imperialism, Islamic dominion, and Arabization.
Here, the preacher points to what he sees as a long-standing pattern of Islamic imperialism, which not only involved military conquest, but also efforts to spread Arab culture and Islam throughout the conquered lands. Historically, Arabization occurred as Islam spread through North Africa and parts of Europe, often erasing or absorbing local cultures. The preacher is arguing that these actions justify the Christian response, positioning the Crusades as a defensive war against religious and cultural domination. The topic of religion and violence has been a point of heated debate for centuries, particularly when it comes to the intersection of faith and war. Throughout history, many conflicts have been fought under the banner of religion, where nations and groups have justified violence as a means to protect, expand, or defend their beliefs. Whether it is the ancient battles of biblical times or more recent conflicts, religion has often played a significant role in shaping the motivations behind war. These wars, initiated by religious leaders and fueled by promises of divine favor, raise significant ethical questions. How does the moral code of a religion align with the brutal realities of warfare? What do you think?